Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's very special webinar titled Drawn to Nature, the Beauty of Bird-Friendly Building. This is a webinar hosted by the Onondaga Audubon Society, and it's going to be mainly a presentation by myself and my colleague and associate in a bird-friendly building mitigation project that happened in Syracuse, New York, Katie Mulligan. So let me just take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Meredith Barges. I'm a board member of Onondaga Audubon Society. I'm a bird-friendly building advocate, a PhD student at SUNY School of Environmental Sciences and Forestry, and I'm also the chair of Lights Out Central New York. I've been working on bird-friendly building advocacy for a number of years now, and there's so many reasons why we should be celebrating the beauty of bird-friendly building design and these buildings that are meant to not just protect birds in the built environment, but also contribute something to the vernacular of the places that they're in. So we're going to be talking about so many things. But before we get fully started, I'd like to give my colleague Katie Mulligan a chance to introduce herself and say more about her work and her involvement in the project, one of the projects we'll be talking
about. Hi, everyone. So my name is Katie Mulligan. As Meredith mentioned, we worked together on a mural that was installed at ESF. There were actually three kind of separate projects, but I did the painting and the application of the mural. In my personal work, I'm a freelance illustrator and a current graduate student at Syracuse University. My research goes over wetlands and their colonial representation, contemporary policy, and everything related to wetlands. And my point of focus is Cicero Swamp Management Area, which is a local wetland here in central New York.
I can't wait till we get a chance to talk more about the project that we did together. We're going to be talking about so many things tonight, and there's a lot to cover in an hour. So let's see if we can get started talking at least about the first part of it. And so I'm going to start to share screen, and we'll be looking at a lot of images tonight because this is really a chance to celebrate art and to celebrate the images of what's possible when we think about and consider birds during the design process. So some of you may have seen this the beautiful poster that Katie designed for tonight's webinar. But this is sort of a taste of what's to come because Katie designed this lovely poster for us. So this is what we're going to be talking about this evening. First, I'm going to go over what is bird-friendly design, how is it different from other types of design, other types of sustainable design or green building design. Then we're going to do kind of a case study of a pilot project that happened at SUNY ESF Syracuse campus this past spring that was called Make ESF Safer for Birds. It was a pilot project. And then I'm going to go into some of the aesthetics of bird-friendly design, and then we'll have a chance for you to ask questions. There's a lot to cover, and there's just so much to say about how this new form of architecture, this new form of design is really bringing a very specific kind of vocabulary and a very unique personality into the building envelope, the exterior of the building. So what is bird-friendly building? First of all, in a very technical sense, with more and more laws being passed that have a mandate or a requirement for new buildings to follow bird-friendly design, is that it's a set of building standards that protect birds in the built environment from building collisions and or light pollution. So bird-friendly building can refer to the standards that are used to say what kind of patterns, what kinds of we could say visual noise is needed on the exterior to prevent the kinds of reflections and transparency of glass and other materials that can confuse birds so that birds don't collide with solid surfaces. and also light pollution, which is known to attract birds into unsafe areas. And light pollution is really known to contribute to collisions, but also to cause migratory birds to go off their flight paths. So really, you can have a bird-friendly building standard that just regulates glass and the building envelope and materials, or that just regulates light pollution, anything that's meant to reduce bird collisions, bird building collisions, and light pollution related migratory disruptions is a bird-friendly building standard. And it's a type of architecture that incorporates bird collision deterrence. So not only is bird-friendly building a standard, it's also it's a type of architecture. And then also it's an important component of green building. Sometimes when we think of sustainable building or green building, we think about energy efficiency or natural resource conservation, like water resource use, or reduce mechanisms to turn lights on and off. But bird-friendly building is a very important part of green building, because how can you have to ask a very simple question, how can you have a sustainable building that kills birds, or how can you have a green building that depletes the population of birds in the area? So it's an extremely important part of green building, and I would argue that it's a necessary part of all green building types. So that's a general overview of what is bird friendly and why do we need it. It's because the statistic is staggering and shocking, is that we lose in this country over 1 billion birds every year to building collisions. We know that there's spikes around spring and fall with migratory birds passing through areas where they're unfamiliar with the glass in the area, or there's a lot of light pollution that they're not used to. And so we have spikes, but in general, we are seeing huge numbers of bird collisions over the country. And really, I'm just going to say the collisions happen, and there are very clear ways to prevent them. Bird-friendly design elements include bird-safe glass and other materials that are treated to be safe. And then also exterior screens and blinds. These are all different techniques. So you can see here you have some glass that would otherwise pose a danger or a risk to birds, but instead it's been treated with I think this is ceramic. This is a ceramic fritted glass. So it notifies birds that there is a solid barrier there. So that's a really common form of bird-friendly design feature. Wooden screens, like these here in this second photo, is that you're going to break up that reflection and the transparency of the glass. So it's anything on the exterior that's going to break up and cause visual noise. And the third one is any kind of a vinyl or a film that goes over the glass. This is usually used in retrofits. Once a building's already been built, and if it causes problems for birds, that there's a kind of a film that can be, and all of these different approaches, as you can see, they introduce the opportunity for art. They have the opportunity to bring personality and identity and a sense of place to the building that perhaps wasn't there before. So it's really an opportunity to think about these elements, because it's not like there's one fit. That's such an important thing to know about bird-friendly design, is that there's no one solution for every building. Every building can use a combination of these different techniques to achieve bird collision deterrence. And an important aspect is also responsible nighttime lighting. So, and these can be combined in any way to create very unique buildings. Now, many of you may have heard in the news about the retrofitting of McCormick Place in Chicago, which is almost the most notorious, quote, bird-killing building in the country. Over the building's lifetime, many tens of thousands of birds have died. I think the number is somewhere between 20 to 30,000 birds died crashing into this very glassy building that's sited right on the edge of Lake Michigan. Now you can see here the way that the glass actually reflects You can see it reflecting there, the trees and the habitat around the building. And so that really tips us off to what is bird-friendly building trying to achieve. It's breaking up the reflection on the glass, and is also preventing a transparency on the glass. Now, the danger when bird-friendly building laws first started to be passed is that all of the different mitigation techniques was that most architects would first reach for this dotted solution, dotted strategy to prevent birds. And, the city of Toronto, Canada, was the first city to adopt a bird-friendly building law in 2010. And there was really a worry, and the advocates say that people were worried that it would become like a polka dot city, that the city would just be covered in these polka dots, and that would really be the only way to prevent the only strategy used to prevent the collisions. But that was really kind of a short-sighted and a not very imaginative way to think about the different ways to meet the standards for bird-friendly design. And instead, what you end up having in these very dynamic, very interesting looking buildings that achieve bird collision deterrence the way that bird-friendly building should do, but they're expressing themselves with color, with exterior screening, with combinations of different strategies, and you get these singular buildings like the Orange Cube in Lyon, France, which it's a real landmark in the city, and it also protects birds. So that's really the goal. It's not just to cover everything with little dots. The goal really is to protect birds, but then also find a way to do that in an architecturally interesting, architecturally dynamic way. So you get a building like the Orange Cube, or here you have the Cocoon in Zurich, Switzerland, which you can see it's using a metal mesh around the exterior. So you can see in. You can obviously see if a person was there. You can see the paneling on the ceiling. So it's not really diminishing the visibility of the out of the windows very much, or the glass that much. It's just has a little bit of a visibility depreciation, but what it does is it completely surrounds the glass so that no bird would have would mistakenly crash into this building. And how unique is this? I really like that building a lot. And then here's another example. It's the West Bank Station in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so they took an opportunity to make the subway system, instead of using glass, which A, would be hard to clean, and B, pose a risk to birds. Instead, they used the subway station as an opportunity to celebrate birds and incorporate art. And so you're seeing here a kind of metal meshing. So this is an exterior screen where they're using, it's almost like a large sculptures with these bird designs mixed with patterns in the background, which almost looks like textile. So how signature is this? This is not your everyday subway station, and it's one where not only is it safe, but it also celebrates birds in the area. So this is just a taste. We're going to talk about this more. Here's another great example. This is the Johns Hopkins Children's Center Skywalk in Baltimore, and it almost looks like leaves falling from a tree. Looks like maybe rainfall. Maybe looks like insects or something. So you get this beautiful sense of nature riff in the glass that's preventing bird collisions. It's also creating a much more intimate space, I would argue, is that you're getting a chance to feel like if you're sitting in this space, you're going to be, not exposed, which actually people don't really like to be viewed through glass very much. And also creates a lot of interesting like lighting effect as the light changes through the day, the shadows on the ground, the shadows that move through. So these are all just different examples of bird-friendly buildings. And now we're going to talk about a project. This is our case study that we're going to talk about, which is a pilot project we did at SUNY ESF to make the campus safer for birds. And this is where I'm going to, Katie's going to join the conversation more, and maybe we'll pause just for a moment before we get started to ask, does anybody have any questions before we get started? If you do, you can just unmute and ask a question or drop your question into the chat. But if anybody has any burning questions about bird-friendly design before we continue, let's just pause for a moment. Okay, hopefully everything's clear so far. Okay, so let's talk now about this very interesting pilot project that happened in spring of this past year on the campus of the university that I attend, which is SUNY School of Environment in Syracuse. And when I showed up on campus, I kept seeing all these large expanses of glass, which the facilities people call windscreens. Now there are at least six, maybe seven of these, depending on how you count the seventh one, six of these very large, just transparent panes of glass around the campus, and that pose a risk for birds. And there are a lot of birds on the ESF campus, like this mourning dove. This is a photo I took of a mourning dove nesting the building that's just across the way from the building here that's in this photo. So a number of I started working with the ESF Birding Club to try to convince this school to do something about the glass. And in one of our meetings, Rochelle, who's on the Office of Sustainability, suggested, what if we do something temporary? Because I had been saying all the different ways that you can make a building bird safe. So what if we just do something temporary? And what if we just use that paint method, which is one way you can mitigate glass. And so this pilot project was approved, and we were given permission to mitigate five different windscreens, five of the six different windscreens on the SUNY ESF campus. And so now I'd like to show you some of the results of that. And then let Katie tell you a little bit about how she got involved, and then her art, and how she gets started on the project.
So good evening again, everybody. My name is Katie, for those who might have joined, and I did all the most of the application of our murals on these windows. So the way I got involved initially, I think my practice involves a lot of consideration of kind of sustainability or the natural world. And I'd worked with some other folks on campus to kind of address concerns about architecture and birds. There was another professor doing a project that I had worked with. And generally, I believe Meredith and I were connected by a mutual contact from Audubon, if I remember correctly. I'd done a lecture in a course, and I just happened to stay in touch with a student. And overall, when I was kind of considering what to put on these windows, I really wanted to commemorate I think a lot of the birds that unfortunately had collided with the windows already on campus. So, as I recall, Meredith had told a story about an American woodcock that had actually collided with our Gateway Center, which is like sort of a large, almost dining hall welcome area of campus. So, it only felt right to commemorate the American woodcock. He's also a personal favorite species of mine. But beyond that, all of the birds and plant life that you'll see in these photos is actually found in New York State, and is the bird species themselves are actually species that have a high collision rate with glass. So there is like a mourning dove on there. There's the ovenbird, which is a migratory bird. And there are quite a few birds that, again, you can find in the area and just unfortunately have high collision rates with glass or other architecture. In terms of a lot of the plant life, there's, again, my area of focus is often wetlands, but I also love studying birds and their habitats. So a lot of these birds are near wildflowers or plants that they might sort of exist near in the wild. There's a lot of sort of reeds or aster or other sort of plants that, again, you can find right here in New York State. I think the only kind of different direction I took for one of the windows was at the Gateway Center. There is a great blue heron. I just felt it was important to kind of nod. I mean, they're a super common bird in this area. And then additionally, just with a wetlands focus, I thought it was really important to feature that species. But they do have less recorded collisions with glass and windows, I think, just because they're not necessarily in this area as frequently. But yeah, and all of the medium you see is white acrylic paint. Um, and I just kind of freehanded this application. I have a lot of practice. I draw a lot of birds. So this was kind of a perfect project. I was really thrilled when Meredith asked me because any opportunity to draw birds is really great. So yeah, I just ended up, I went to the windows and I worked and kind of freehanded. And it was a really great opportunity as well to strike up some conversation about why this was occurring and why exactly we were interested in installing this on campus. And it was overall very, very positive. I didn't get anyone sort of opposing the project, which was really fun. And generally, people just wanted to know more about birds and why we were sort of painting birds on campus. So it was a really great community engagement project as well. And I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. So, yeah.
Because Katie, I can say it was fun a few times while I was on campus. I found out, people would make a comment to me about these murals that were suddenly appearing because it's not like you just did one. It's not like you did them all at once. You were doing them like over a course of weekends. And like every week or every few days, like a new mural would suddenly appear, and people would, I would just be like out to dinner with someone, and they would ask, "Oh, have you seen that new artwork that's going up on campus? It looks so interesting." People kept commenting me about the chalk art that's on campus. So people actually didn't realize, because we hadn't at that point put up the signs about it, but people did not realize that this was a bird mitigation. They thought that this was just pure artwork. They thought of it as a like a public art project. So I don't know, like it was an interesting how the project really brought so much more art to the ESF campus, and also had this secondary, or like maybe the primary benefit of preventing bird collisions. And so it was like this really interesting way to bring more art, more celebrate more of the local flora and fauna, like you do in your artwork, um, together in one project. Because I don't know, did people, when people talk to you about it, did they think that, because these are just a couple pictures of people talking to you about, what kinds of questions were you getting, I wonder, as you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the largest was sort of like, why are you putting birds on the window? Or sort of like, why is this? There was at first, I mean, a lot of people, of course, immediately said that they really loved the artwork. And I did love that um, there was no sort of like question of its necessity or anything, just because I think people really enjoyed looking at the artwork at the time. And I think the number one feedback I had from students, refreshingly, was that they really wanted more public artwork like this on campus, which I think, in the context of our conversation about bird mitigation, is a really great pathway into kind of integrating maybe community interest in public artwork with an interest that overlaps with bird collision mitigation. But yeah, I would say the number one kind of conversation starter was just people would really love the artwork. And then I would sort of try to explain why I was drawing these birds, or sort of like what the influence was. And people were really excited about it. I think previous to this art project, I wasn't personally aware of sort of techniques to mitigate bird collision. It's not something I had thought of super consciously. And I think being able to install this project and also have those conversations led to a wider awareness with a lot of the students I talked to, that this is something that really is important and also does exist and is kind of an option for campuses like ESF.
Oh,
Yeah, because there was an interesting uh, that it was interesting how you were able to, because you have your very distinct, I mean, you're an environment illustrator, you have your own distinct style, you have your own kind of visual vocabulary, and and you can see how you were translating your own artwork, which is so dynamic and nature-based, and then it was sort of being translated into these kind of like more simpler lines, but your style is so recognizable. So I wonder, I like how that felt as you were thinking about how to create these what we ended up calling mitigation murals.
Yeah, I think Jerry has a question if we want to.
oh, yeah. Hi. I
Hi.
have a couple of questions actually. because I'm involved in collision prevention in Fort Myers, Florida. Um, First of all, before your project, was there any collision monitoring going on? Or now, after the project, is there collision monitoring going on?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Let me get to that slide because actually I
Oh,
have a whole slide showing like how the project came to be, but I just didn't start with that because let me see if I can get to it. Hold on.
oh,
Because a lot happened in between how we suddenly just started working. So I have like a whole timeline here. Hold on, let me show it here.
so my question's too early.
No, that's great. It's a great question. So let me answer that because I wonder who else here might be an advocate and who would be interested in knowing like how we got to this point. So what happened was, to answer your question, Jerry, that back in spring of 2024, there was a collision monitoring project that was led by Dr. Chris Briggs. He's a biology professor at ESF, and he had a group of undergraduate students who were going around the buildings on the SUNY ESF campus just looking for birds. I think they were looking from like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And they did find quite a few. Like here's one of the sapsuckers, a yellow-bellied sapsucker that they found. And they collected some data, but it wasn't an overwhelming. There wasn't like there was one particular building that they thought was any more dangerous than another, and it did not lead to advocacy. Like they collected the data, but it sort of like was banked away and had nothing was being. I don't want to say nothing, but there was no plan to try to figure out what to do about some of the buildings on campus, which are very obviously pose hazards to birds, in particular, a very mirrored glass building. So there was this collision monitoring, and also because they didn't do like a standard protocol, so it was sort of, let's say, informal collision monitoring. Let's say it was very informal. So then next what happened was that I started attending in early fall, and suddenly in my email inbox comes this email from our Office of Sustainability saying, "Oh, we're doing a new college sustainability action plan, and we're looking for public comments." So that was like my opportunity. I looked inside and I didn't see any mention of bird-friendly building policies. And I thought, okay, well, here we are at a school of environment. We have to have a bird-friendly building policy that the way that the University of Pennsylvania, Yale, Duke, like a number of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a number of schools have mandatory bird-friendly building policies, and we didn't have one yet. So I wrote to the Office of Sustainability, and they were extremely receptive. Then I started meeting with we have a birding club on campus called the Guy Baldessari Birding Club, and I found out that they had all this collision data, both from the collision monitoring that Chris Briggs had done, plus people had just been informally collecting information about different collisions on campus, and they I advised them to model it on the one that Yale Bird Friendly Building Initiative had created in iNaturalist. So they uploaded like 56 observations that showed where different collisions were happening, and there's a lot of pictures, as you know, from like iNaturalist, a lot of pictures of dead birds, which can be really shocking to like administrators who, in some cases, like our facilities director had no idea. She had never heard of collisions before. She had never experienced it before. So having even some data was helpful to be able to paint a picture of like what was happening in combination with advocacy, because they were very, very receptive, and they like invited me to do a presentation, and then they said they wanted to figure out a way, and they immediately agreed to add a bird-friendly building policy to the sustainability action plan, which now it has. And at the same time, there was like a lights out effort because you can see that this is our new Marshall Hall retrofit, and there's a lot of glass that's actually ceramic fritting on it, luckily, but a lot of lighting on it. And so it was in that context of saying, well, what can we do? You seem receptive, but what could we do that thankfully Rochelle suggested that we do something just to mitigate for the spring as like a pilot project. And that's where this idea of just using paint, which is definitely it's a very temporary mitigation solution. Though I will say the ones that we put up have lasted. I just saw them a few weeks ago. They've lasted for, let's think about March, April, May, wait, March, sorry, May, June, July, August. So they had already lasted for 4 or 5 months. And so that, and then I'll just say the American woodcock that crashed into Gateway, and then multiple woodcocks started crashing into one of our buildings, leaving like horrific bloody mess, and people were emailing about it, that it really provoked the administration to do something about it. So that's how Katie Mulligan, that's when we got the green light to mitigate 5 windscreens, which obviously this is just the low hanging fruit, as we said. We have to do something. These are at, they're at grade level. They could be easily mitigated and wiped clean. We did some tests on it with different kinds of paint. And then it was through Lizzie Quant, who was the former Onondaga Audubon intern, who connected me and Katie, and then Katie brought to life these gorgeous murals. So that's sort of the timeline. So Jerry, do you have any questions based on this? I mean, you can kind of see the timeline. It's pretty fast, actually. It was
Yeah,
literally
I
like,
think so. In just, less than a year and a half, that's pretty good. You were leading into my next question, which was you created the what you call the temporary mitigation on the windscreens.
yeah,
Is there a plan to make it more permanent eventually?
yes,
So,
yes,
oh, good,
because
good.
the SUNY ESF Office of Facilities Office and the Office of Sustainability applied for a grant from the SUNY system, and even amid all of the budget cuts that where all the universities are cutting to the bone right now, they somehow were able to find some monies to make the murals permanent, which is the most amazing news that we just got a couple weeks ago.
Hmm,
So Katie, I don't know if you want to say something about that, but
great.
it's the
Yeah.
most amazing development is that not only the pilot project is now going to be permanent, so those beautiful murals will be made permanent.
Yeah, just one other thing because I couldn't, I mean the windows that you created, Katie, were really beautiful. I couldn't help but be reminded that here at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, art students and science students collaborated and did an art installation on the front of the arts complex, and they used, the white markers. They created a toolkit that only cost $30 and you did the whole entrance. And it spurred interest in doing other buildings on campus because there are a lot of bird collisions on the campus. So, those white markers are really becoming popular. Or we use paint, but they're also the crayons, I guess you call them. And they do last pretty well. So, anyway, thank you.
Do
Yeah,
you want to say more about those mediums? Because we did test a few. I mean, we were literally painting and then wiping it off and like seeing what does it look like. And then I don't know, at some point in the process, we bought those Posca paint pens, and then that's when things got really interesting.
yeah. So we did, I think the bulk of the murals that, so fortunately, some of the windscreens have kind of a protection from some of the elements because these did go through like snow, rain. There was weirdly, I remember snow, I think early in May. So we were trying to find something that would be very durable. And as Meredith said, a lot of them have held up for months. And I think the majority of those that were in the elements, we ended up using Posca markers, which are an acrylic paint-based marker, but they just tend to hold up on materials like glass better. For example, when I worked at Trader Joe's as a sign artist, that's what we'd use on our outside windows to kind of make sure that our sales were visible. But so those really, really hold up to the elements well. I think those have probably held up better than the acrylic. I personally love the acrylic because you can sort of use the brush and kind of create more sort of variance of line. But I think for, yeah, sort of beginning to mitigate bird collisions, I think those Posca paint markers were probably our best solution in terms of like longevity, and also just they're not very expensive, and I could cover a very, very large window with just one marker, which ended up being really, really great. And as you guys could see, we really filled up the windows. So I think the economy of those is really great.
Oh, one other thing, you mentioned that amazingly, the state system found money to, for mitigation, but what form, has it taken or has it not taken yet? Do you know what that is? Is it film? Is it,
Yeah,
free
it will be
glass?
film. Yeah, it's
Okay,
film.
okay.
They really spent some time trying to find the most environmentally friendly of the films because they didn't want, like a lot of PFAS, like all the different chemicals that can be in the plastics. And I will just make a point here that I had at one point recommended, actually the most bird friendly thing that you could do would be to remove these. Like, why do you really need the windscreens? Or is there another way that you could achieve your whatever objective it is, whether it is windscreen, wind divertment or whatever it might be, could you achieve it with a less hazardous material, like replacing it with like say slatted wood or like even like a mesh, some kind of a mesh, or is there some other material that you could replace? Because I said actually the best thing you can do, and this is also true for bird friendly building design more generally, is that reduce the amount of glass. That's
Right.
actually like step one, is try to reduce the amount of glass and then treat the glass that you do find that you need. But the ESF leadership was not open to that at the time, to remove them. I'm not sure, how much that would have cost or what that would have entailed. But so the Office of Sustainability really did their homework to try to find out what's the least environmentally hazardous uh, type of film to turn these into, because they're going to be up for, should be like 12 to 15 years, maybe longer, is generally the lifespan for these these bird friendly film treatments. So and they will literally just print Katie's designs onto some film, and then those will be installed onto the glass. Yeah, I don't know exactly what they ended up choosing, but I know that they really went to the trouble. I can find out for you, but they really put in a lot of extra effort to make sure that would be as minimally toxic to the environment as possible. But I just want to share again because there's an interesting um, I think I have a video on here. Let me see if I can get it going, where you can see what the design looks like. So if you can see here, oh yeah, let me see if I can get this going. Can you see what it looks like there?
Mhm.
So it's just like this burst um of artwork that just appears because otherwise there's not a lot of artwork on our campus. I think there's maybe like two other ones. So that was just amazing. And then here you can see on the left, Katie, is that a hawk? I can't remember. Is that a falcon? I
Yeah,
can't remember.
that's the Merlin.
Oh
He's one of
yeah,
my
nice.
favorite species too. Yeah, I love the Merlin.
And you can really see here, this one Katie did with the Posca pen, and you can really see the detail of the different fauna, the different local fauna that are, I think they're mostly like wetlands, plants and flowers and things. So it's just absolutely beautiful, like as you see it changing as you go by. All right, so I'm just gonna, because there's one other thing. Okay, so a few of the other, there were, I think we mentioned there were five in total that we were given permission to mitigate. Katie did three of them, which we looked at before. I did one. This is ESF. I did like a hummingbird with the river and some flowers, and like a simple stencil design. I used like a stencil, and Emily McClary helped me do some of the stencils. And then I worked with oh my God, Lila, an undergraduate who is part of MOSA, which is our student government. And she put together a flyer because there was another set of windscreens that we got the approval to mitigate. And she was trying to get as many students to come and help mitigate. And so this is what we ended up doing on that fifth one, which is outside of Baker. It's a really simple kind of like birch tree birch tree design. And at one point, I think we had like 3 or 4. I never got a photo of us working on it, but we um, we used acrylic paint on this, and it was really fun because across from this is like a volleyball uh, field, and so there's a lot of people like just hanging around, asking us what we were doing, and it took us a few hours. So, and it was like a great chance to talk about bird friendly. So, um, what were the results? Okay, just auto mention. Then later we put up these sort of signs saying like this mural was by help save birds, and every year nearly 2 billion birds die. And then there's a QR code that goes to Audubon's bird friendly building page. So those were put up at all the different murals to try to raise awareness about it. So the results were that we had 5 windscreens that were mitigated on the Syracuse campus, raised awareness about bird collisions on our campus and beyond by linking this to other, collisions that happen in other spaces. Also incorporating more artwork into our campus, and then making so many different relationships. I think that was like something that Katie mentioned. That at one point, because we had MOSA, the student organized group, we had the illustrators club that was supposed to come out one time. We had Katie, who actually goes to Syracuse University, and it ended up just like creating a lot of conversations and connections across our campus and within. So it ended up being like a really exciting way to do art and to do bird conservation. Do you have any thoughts on that, Katie?
Yeah, I think especially in our contemporary time, I think often there's sort of a difficulty like validating why art is important. And I think that's something that I've been asked to kind of really question in my personal work and in my graduate work. And I think um, in terms of importance in this project and like meaningfulness, I think that it really showed me how important art is in the public space, not only as an artist, but also I think this is a really great kind of community solution for bird mitigation. But like Meredith mentioned, it's also a really great pathway into kind of integrating art into a larger conversation and allowing, as Meredith said, we had a lot of people who helped with the project, allowing more sort of collaboration and more communication about why bird mitigation is really, or bird collision mitigation is really important. So within this project, that was a really fun aspect of it for me as well. And I think when considering like bird collision mitigation solutions, I think that having that collaborative aspect of it was really rewarding for myself as an artist. And I think someone in the chat asked what the markers were. So they, again, were Posca paint markers. That's POSCA. We used some of the really chunky ones. I also used some little ones, and I believe they might have just released a brush pen one in the white color, if you really enjoy painting. But yeah.
Yeah, so are any other questions before we go on? I'm going to talk a little bit more next about bird-friendly design more generally. If anybody has any questions about the campus project. Okay, I mean, we'll have more time for questions later on and also reflections later on. So, all right, I'll just keep moving along because I have a couple more slides. And I just want to mention again, I think it was obvious when I started off that I myself I'm not an architect. I'm a I'm a I'm an advocate and I'm a policy researcher. So a lot of what I'm saying here are based on my own observations, and also because a lot of times when there is opposition to bird-friendly building policies or bird-friendly mitigation, the most common two points of opposition are A, that bird-friendly building design or bird-friendly building materials are too expensive, which is actually like not true because like other kinds of green building, if it's thought about in the design phase, it can cost the same as or less than, by just reducing the amount of glass or just making simple substitutes for glass or using screens and things. It can cost the same as or less than standard building. And also, as you saw, we were able to do a whole lot of projects altogether that cost $170. And that included like a footstool. It included, like cleanup materials. So it cost $170 for us to do 5 windscreens. So it really wasn't an expensive project. But so you have the perceived expensiveness of bird-friendly design, which is not quite right. And then also you have the perception that bird-friendly building is ugly, or that it's just dots, or that it's like a compromise, or that architects will be constrained. But that's obviously not true either, because we saw that doing those windscreens, mitigating them, actually brought a lot of beauty, a lot of art, a lot of celebration of the local place to SUNY ESF's campus. So we know that actually bird-friendly design is dynamic, it's unique, and let's just go over it. It's an opportunity to incorporate more art and personality into a space, which we saw with the case study, of the pilot project. But then also here we have a bird-friendly building, the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art, and that's in New York City. You can see how unique this building is with this building envelope wrap. There's no single solution for collision deterrence. It's not like, oh, it's bird friendly, therefore you must do X. You have designers have a massive range of different ways to achieve bird collision deterrence. So there's no cookie cutter. There's no cookie cutter approach. It's really whatever you want to make of it. There's just some basic design, standards of creating visual noise and, breaking up reflectivity. Besides that, there's a huge range of materials, different colors, styles, that different lexicons of architecture that can be used. And a really important part of bird-friendly design, I think, that can be introduced is biophilic design, which I'm going to be talking about a little bit more in depth. But I just want to take a moment to also point out that bird-friendly building design is also award-winning. This is the Brooklyn Botanical Garden Visitor Center. And as you can see, it has vertical ceramic fritting on the glass panels, as well as a green roof. There's so many birds transiting through. This is a garden that attracts a lot of different bird species. And so it had to be bird friendly. And it's award winning. It's won at least 5 or 6 different awards, and it's a gorgeous building. In fact, the background that to my image right now is a photo as if I'm inside that building. So we know it can also be award winning. How beautiful is this building? Here's another one. It's the Aqua Center in Arlington, Virginia, which actually has a bird-friendly building policy mandate where certain buildings have to be bird-friendly. If they want to be in certain parts of the city, they have to be bird-friendly. So here's this aquatic center, and it uses vertical ceramic fritting and a very dramatic, like, candelabra design. But let me just say something about biophilic design, which is a really good way, I think, to achieve bird-friendly design. Biophilic design is something that emerged, I think it was in the 1990s, started to be developed as a methodology for designing buildings that actually nurture our relationship to nature. And there's a real growing understanding that's being backed up by scientific studies that actually we thrive in the natural environment. We love, I'm talking about human beings. We love and benefit from hearing the trickling sound of water. We benefit and we actually really love to hear birdsong. And it's shown to improve our mental well-being, our emotional well-being. We're actually benefit from, and I'm talking mentally, emotionally, even intellectually, in seeing dynamic visual, like kind of refracted patterns, like the way that nature has, like a tree has so many different leaves, and has the bark has so much texture to it. Now, when you think about like the modern cubicle, where a lot of people work away at their cube, where it's just like white or sensory deprived in like a hospital room, that's actually like not a good environment for a human. We actually thrive and we respond positively to natural sounds, natural visual patterns, natural forms, natural shapes, light, and feeling a connection to other species, whether they're plants or animals. We really thrive in those kinds of scenarios. So biophilic design is a way that kind of uses that knowledge to engineer spaces that actually improve work, let's say work productivity. They're shown to improve human emotional well-being. So biophilic design is a very important to modern architecture as we understand more and more about our place in nature and our relationship with nature, and that we are a part of the natural systems. But I just want to point out, there are the 6 elements of biophilic designs, and the last one is an evolved human-nature relationship. And how sad would it be if in our pursuit of number 4, light and space, we want all this natural light. We want to be able to see the outdoors. What if in the process of seeking out those things, we actually caused harm? We caused harm to the 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 wildlife and to the place where we were, to the ecosystem where the building was. So we really want to have buildings that reflect and that enhance our relationship and support our relationship with the natural world, and that honors the natural world. So I feel like the greatest expressions of the biophilic design are designs that are not just visually beautiful and that benefit us, but also benefit the world around us that we depend on and we're interdependent with. So I just took this photograph today. This is the Yale Sterling Library, and just to point out that a lot of very old, older architectures are naturally bird friendly. Look how small those, they're called mullions, where the glass goes in. This is very small, so this would qualify as a bird friendly. It's so small that even like a brown creeper or a hummingbird wouldn't be able to go through those mullions. So this would be naturally bird friendly. And look at the light that it creates and all of the carving and everything, this detail. This is just one detail. And so really the old ways that, what they call vernacular architecture, oftentimes it's very naturally bird friendly. I'm talking about like the vernacular architecture, meaning the architecture that's endemic to a certain place. So here you have architectures from Ghana. And what ends up happening, though, is that as a way to take a local vernacular architecture and modernize it, unfortunately, is they take the vernacular of what it is, and then they just put a lot of glass on it to make it look modern. Because here you have the tourist pardon house in the Scottish Highlands. Now take that glass away, and this would be a traditional, vernacular home. But instead, they think of it as an upgrade, or let's make it modern by adding all this glass that actually ends up threatening birds in the area. Also, glass itself is very carbon intensive. It takes a lot of process to make it, takes a lot of carbon to make glass and to move glass around. And so you start to see how you take a vernacular and then you can very quickly make it dangerous for birds. Here's another one. This is the Marlborough Music Reich Hall in Marlborough, Vermont. Unfortunately, this is considered like a vernacular architecture. It's sort of like a vaulted like cabin, a wood cabin. But look at those windows. And this is in Vermont, where you know that this building is causing a lot of bird collisions with all those large picture windows. So it's just unfortunate when you have people think, oh, this is a green building, or this is a vernacular architecture, because it is labeled as such. But then what's the consequences for the birds in the area, for the ecosystem? And it's just sort of like not seeing beyond what seems visually attractive to us as humans, is to say, how does this reflect and enhance our true relationship to nature, not a visual relationship to nature. So the question is, can a building be beautiful if it kills birds? How beautiful can a building be if it actually harms birds, especially endangered species, which can also crash into glass buildings? So I just want to finish. This is my last slide. We've talked about a lot. This is my favorite bird-friendly building. It's the University of Waterloo's School of Pharmacy in Waterloo, Canada. And look at that beautiful building envelope. So they're using a kind of they're having the actual transparent looking glass that's all mitigated glass, but then they're using different kinds of panels that creates actually a beautifully biophilic building. It's so unique. It points to the fact that herbs and flowers and plant life is what is where pharmaceuticals come from. And so this really is a nod to, the identity of the building of this pharmaceutical school. So to me, this is I just love this building and I would love to, I haven't visited it yet, but I would love to. So with that, I'll just conclude. This is our question and answers section. I'll just give you one last bird-friendly building. This is has some metal screening around the edges, and then here's a ruby-crowned kinglet. So with that, I think we just have a few minutes for questions. And let me open it up for questions from everyone.
While you folks are considering questions, I did also want to drop my Instagram, and also I have a Substack where weekly I post updates on wetlands and other environments within New York State. I'll drop the links for those in the chat if you guys have enjoyed my artwork. Oh, I see we have some questions also in chat. Did you find a favorite source for the stencils? I think Meredith, that one might
Oh
be
yeah,
for
the
you.
stencils. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I just went to Michael's. I literally just went to Michael's and I experimented with because at one point I was gonna use like you know how if you're doing dishes in the sink and you have like some rubber matting, and I was trying to use that as my stencil and it was not working. So I just went to Michael's and they had it was like a whole envelope full of stencils that were very thin. And I literally used a stenciling technique with like a brush, a stencil brush, which is very wide and fat. And so I was able to, do a daubing effect. And I was able to do it. So it took a little bit of experimentation, and it also was a little bit time consuming, I will say, but I really like the effect of it. Did you ask that question because you liked how that looked? I'd love to hear if you actually liked that look. But in essence, it was Michael's. Yeah, I just wonder if is anyone not convinced that bird friendly building is beautiful, a beautiful expression of green building, and also helps to nurture our relationship, not just to the natural world, but also to the birds around us. That keeps us.
I'm Renee. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm Renee. I'm the one that asked that question about the stencils because actually I would, I would like to do it even at my home. I have some windows that are larger and higher than like the blinds or drapes go. So I think that I'd like to try to do this on my own at home. That's why I asked about the markers and the stencils.
That's a really great way to very easily and quickly, and also you can also change it up. I'll just say, Renee, before I started doing this stenciling on that glass panel, I actually did it on my window in my apartment. So I was experimenting with it, and so I was seeing which one of the stencils I liked because there were so many of them. But I just want to point out, glass poses risks to birds because of both reflectivity and transparency. Even a glass that's meant to be just transparent, like we saw on the McCormick Blaze, is that the real one of the real sources of hazard to birds is the reflectivity. So you have to do it on the exterior for it to be effective. So that was like the tricky part for me was I was on the second floor, and so I was like literally like stenciling out one window, wrapping around to stencil the exterior. But if you only stencil the interior, it's not going to be as effective as you have to be on the exterior to break up that reflectivity, which you may have already known, Renee, but just to be sure, it has to be on what we call surface one, the exterior, to break up the reflectivity. But it was
Yeah,
so cheap.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I guess I did think I would just do it on the interior. So earlier when you began the talk, you mentioned things like wood slats. And I'm thinking again of home windows that have blinds or shades on the inside. But now I guess I'm realizing that might not be as effective as I thought.
Yeah, it's like if you wrote on the back of a mirror, it wouldn't change the reflection. So, yeah, it
Yeah,
might work part of the day depending on the sun angle, but you can't, probably not all day. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, what happens is, unfortunately, the ideal would be to have exterior blinds and screens, but depending on where you live, you know, if you're in a warm climate, then exterior winds, screens and slides and stuff, that's a little bit more common, you know. But if you're in if you're in colder climates, you know, with snow and things, it's like not a practical, it's not really practical, though I have seen it on in Massachusetts on a green building as they had exterior screenings. Now, it does help with the lighting though, is if you have a lighting on past, you know, 11 o'clock at night and you close your curtains and blinds, it will help to reduce the light pollution because it's actually light pollution at windows. It's not just exterior lights, like if you leave your porch light, it's your actually windows of your living room and stuff that projects lights out that causes collisions. So drawing your curtains and blinds or whatever and or changing them overnight and also during the day can reduce. It can reduce it. And there are some studies like of the California Academy of Sciences. They found that by shutting their blinds or closing their interior blinds, they were able to reduce collisions. Now, like it wasn't 100%, you know, it wasn't a total fix, but it was at least it helped. So maybe like a combination is if you treat as much of your exterior of your windows as you can, and then do as much as you can with the window blinds, you know, at night, and then also in the morning if you don't mind leaving those down, or you know, doing the adjustments if you have Venetian blinds. I just wanted to point out, you know, again, it's just it's really about breaking up the reflectivity um, of the of the glass. So you can see how, like as I mentioned here, you have the McCormick Place. Look how you can see that tree. I mean, it looks like the tree. It looks like mirror, but this glass wasn't even necessarily intended to be mirrored glass. This is just regular standard glass that because glass is highly reflective, it creates a lot of optical illusion. So you have to put the treatments on the exterior on surface one in order to break up that reflection so that a bird will know that that's not really a tree across the way. They'll know that there's really a solid barrier there. And then that's enough to save bird life.
I think there may also have been some more things in chat here. Like we have, is there a window size, position of window, or direction that they face that is a greater concern for homes?
Yeah, it's true for homes or a building of any size. The bigger the expanse of glass, the larger the like literally the larger the threat to birds. So pretty much, you know, like floor to ceiling, what they call like glass curtain walls or glass expanses or portrait window what do you call those? Those are going to cause the biggest collision threat for birds. And why, you know, there's going to be a retrofit of a building at SUNY ESF called Illick Hall. It's a brutalist building. They're going to take out a lot of the bricks and just replace it with glass. Now, when I saw the design as it was going to be, I knew it would create a huge hazard for birds if that was not treated, because that would have been more huge, you know, curtain walls of glass. So, but in terms of a particular orientation, I don't know if you mean like facing northeast to west like that, but there is mixed science on whether or not an angled window will reduce, you know, if the window is angled, it could potentially you know, disrupt the reflection enough that it would reduce the amount of collisions. So I hope that answers your question, but window size is definitely the larger the window, unfortunately, the bigger the threat. And then we have a comment from Celia that she really likes the illustrations. They turned out beautiful. Okay, good. Density of the decals is so important. Thank you, Dory. That's exactly right. That's the thing, is a lot of people will just put up one or two of those hawk silhouettes and think that that's enough. But really the spacing needs to be at least 2x4 and ideally 2x2 inches. That's why that stencil that I used was pretty dense, because that will help protect for the very smallest of birds, and that's the pattern that that you know that that's the pattern that Katie followed in her design too, which I just want to look at one more time here. You can see you can see how dense the pattern was. There's the American woodcock, unfortunately, that died at the Gateway Center, but then here you can see how much the design is very tight here. And that would prevent like even the smallest birds like kinglets and things from getting through. So the density is definitely very important. Okay, well, I'm just looking at the time here, so we just went a little bit over. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. I'd like to thank Katie, who did an amazing job on the murals. So I just would like to just thank everyone, and this is going to be posted on YouTube, so please share, and you can email us with any questions. Katie dropped her Instagram in the post, so you can enjoy more of her artwork and more of her conservation, her different nature conservation projects and efforts on her Instagram page.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much. Hope you come away inspired. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Yay. Thank you. Bye.